Empire.
Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner, who's live from Disney World. We're talking today. We're talking about the COVID absences the Capitals have played through, in addition to all the injuries. Bruce Boudreau, our old buddy, taking over as coach of the Vancouver Canucks. TJ Oshie's back for the Capitals. Nicholas Backstrom almost back for this team. It seems like things are looking up, right, Karl?
Yeah, they seem like it. It's we've been kind of all counting down the days to have Nick Backstrom back, especially after how he played last year. Everyone's kind of excited to just see him back in the lineup, and he's a fan favorite and huge for the team on and off the ice. But the nice thing is that the team is already playing some good hockey. So it's sometimes when you have an injured guy or whatever, and they may be ready to come back and play, but you sometimes don't want to upset the apple cart. But Nick is not one of those guys where you hold off for, so it'll be great whenever he can come back to slot him back in and then really see what this team can do, as long as stay off that COVID list and guys like Osh can find a way to stay healthy. It would be great to see the team, I guess, full strength right now, because they've been piecing it together, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, back-to-back wins, finally winning in a shootout, started the season 0-5 in overtime, and then losing in the shootout. Alex Ovechkin scored in the shootout the other night, and one of the weird things about Alex is he's always been terrible at the shootout for some reason.
Yeah, so it was funny. I want to talk about that shootout because, like you said, I am live from Disney, so I haven't been able to tune in for full games, but I watched some of the highlights, and so it's one of those things where I think probably everybody watching would just think, like, Alex, come down and just rip a wrist shot or a slap shot from inside the top of the circle, and you'd score every single time. And I always thought it was funny because he'd always want to deke and always want to go backhand and do all these things in tight. And I mean, he has good hands, but he's got a crazy curve on his stick too, that sometimes it's not always easy to handle the puck. And when the ice is a little bit chewed up at the end of the game and they do the scrapes and stuff, it's just not ideal conditions. But yeah, he's been a little, I guess, up and down, you'd say. But if it was me, I'd want to see him come down and just rip shots all the time, because that I think a goalie would have an extremely hard time seeing the puck come off the blade when he's that tight. But which leads me to my next point, talking about John Carlson's goal. So this is something that's so cool. When we had Mitch Korn there as the goalie coach, he'd always pull us all into the room and he would talk about how to score. Usually it's goalie coaches work one-on-one with a goalie, or I guess one-on-two with the goalies, and talk about how to stop pucks. But he would have these I guess goal scoring clinics, I guess you could call them, where we'd all be in there and he'd show us all the shooting percentages, where to shoot on the goalie, where to shoot from, shoot high, low, middle, five-hole, this and that. It was really, really cool. And it was always funny because after those meetings, I felt bad for the goalies because we'd all be out there in practice just trying all these techniques and stuff that Mitch told us. But one of the ones that really always stuck out in my mind, and I know in a few other guys as well, was exactly what Carly did in that shootout. And it may look subtle, but all he does is just kind of a quick open up the blade and push the puck. It's maybe 6 inches from, I guess, inside out, and just enough to change his angle, freeze the goalie a little bit. And then if you actually could see from the puck, like if the puck had eyes, you would just see the net completely open up. It's amazing. And it's such a subtle move. And he's done it so many times on shootouts. And I can clearly remember one other time he did it right after he had one of these meetings. And it's just something that sometimes goes unnoticed, but he's been money. I think he was 40% that I saw going into that one. So yeah, he's been pretty hot in the shootout himself. So it's just neat little tricks that the goalie coaches can teach you. Mitch is definitely legendary in that aspect.
Did you ever get a chance to take a shootout shot?
Oh yeah, of course. I took one.
No, not of course, no.
No, definitely not of course. It was actually really funny. It was we had a shootout that went through the entire team against Florida. In Florida, Roberto Luongo was in net. And I would assume it was Holtz. and I think it went like 7 or 8 shooters at this point, and me and Brooks Orpik are sitting at the end of the bench, and we're both kind of laughing, like, "Oh, what are you gonna do when it gets to you?" And this was only 7 shooters in, so like we had no idea. And he's like, "Oh, I just said he had no idea." And I said, "Well, I'll take a slap shot. If it gets to me, I'll go in there and just try and bury one as hard as I can." And he was kind of like, "You won't do it. There's no way." And so sure enough, it came up to the 17th and 18th shooter. So me and Orpy were the two last guys. I went 17th, went in there, and I'm like, "Oh, I told him I would take a slap shot, so I have to." So I went in there, wound up for the big slapper. Luongo just kicked it aside, and their guy went and shot. So Orpy was up, and Orpy came in with this, like, you could pull the clip up. It's hilarious. It was like a fake forehand, fake backhand, back to the forehand, like just completely out of left field. Like nobody expected him. And we all went absolutely ballistic on the bench when he scored. And then I think their guy scored as well. So it went back around, and it was, I assume it's the longest shootout in history.
It is. It is actually the longest
time.
shootout in history. Yes.
Yeah. So I shot one time. I was the 17 of 18 shooters that could shoot. I was the 17th. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up your shot right now, and it didn't look terribly impressive.
Yeah, it was, it's one of those things, a slap shot, you either got to go, like, for me, I'm a lefty. So on most goalies, you got to go hard, low blocker. And it's just a almost impossible shot for the goalie to stop if you can get it in that spot, or just roof it. And I don't know. I'm a low blocker guy. So I just figured I'd do that. And I missed the spot, and it looks bad when it just hits the goalie's pad. It looks like he didn't do anything. So looking back on it, I probably wouldn't have done a whole lot different anyways. Because like I said, the ice gets chewed up at that point, and to go and make a move and risk the puck bouncing, wasn't something I guess I was willing to risk. So I guess if I could do it differently, I'd probably wrist shot high blocker, which is the other thing I like to try and do when I'm going in on the goalies. And if you don't, like, Holtz knew it, so it wasn't ever fun for me in practice because he would just stand there and knock it down. But for goalies that don't know, a blocker side or your strong side shot is usually a pretty good bet.
Yeah, that shootout actually went 20 rounds against the Panthers that year.
There you go. Does it say on there who won it? Who
Nick
had the ring
Bukestad
goal?
won it for the Panthers.
Oh, they beat us. Okay, so
Yeah.
I thought for some reason I had a better memory of that. But
It's
yeah,
still
it
fun
was
to be a part of something crazy like that, right?
extremely. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of guys that'll go through their whole career and never take a shot in shootout. So I'm just happy I got one.
Yeah. So the Capitals have been dealing now with having Nick Dowd out for protocol and Garnet Hathaway out and Trevor Van Riemsdyk out. Obviously, you didn't deal with like hockey during a pandemic absences, but when you had like a flu bug going through the team, was it like, hey, let's try not to have everybody sick at the same time?
Well, that's ideal conditions, yeah, but it never happens like that. As soon as one guy got sick, everybody got sick. You're touching all the same stuff, drinking from the water bottles. Like if you started to notice you were getting sick, it was always the courteous thing to do is go and tape up a bottle that was just for you and start drinking from that. But there wasn't, like, now it's so normal to have sanitizer everywhere, right? So everybody's just used
Yeah.
to just taking a squirt of sanitizer and off you go. But for the most part, you weren't doing that as much before, so it didn't matter. Everybody was getting it, and so those are the times of the year where it just sucks. Like everybody's coughing, no one can talk, and trying to call for passes. No one's got a voice out there, and you're just trying to get through. And it happens. You go through like one or two times of the year where everybody starts to get something, and so it's no surprise that even with all the protocols and stuff they have now, that guys are still finding a way to pick things up, because it's just one slip up, right? And next thing you know, one guy, two guys, three guys have it. But yeah, it sucked when it was like when it was a flu bug that went around, and it was that much harder for guys to play through it, and they're throwing up and stuff. That's when it gets tough. But it's just normal now. We have now we know that it's COVID and not just the regular cold that we used to get. So they take it a little bit more serious.
Yeah, and the Capitals have been taking this seriously, and coaches started putting the masks on, all that. And because of the schedule, they play Saturday, they get off Sunday, they play Monday, off Tuesday, and then all of a sudden practice is canceled on Wednesday. Did you remember? Like, I know this happens later in the year, but did you ever remember having a stretch of basically 3 out of 4 days off from practices this early in the year?
No, not definitely not this early in the year. I remember one time it was, I'm trying to remember. It was one of the years where I think we won the President's Cup, maybe the 2016. I have to go back and check, but we were, we were on a heater. I think we had won like 11 or 13, like 11 games in a row, something like that. It was, or maybe it was like 10 of 11. Anyways, it was really, really good hockey we were playing. And then I think we had Anaheim coming to town, and it was the game before or 2 games before the All-Star break was coming, and then we got one of those freak snowfalls that we get sometimes in DC, and the game ended up getting
I
canceled,
remember
and
this.
then yeah, and then we ended up heading on All-Star break right after that. So we had like 3 extra days off. Guys couldn't get to the rink, and then we went straight to All-Star break after that for another 4 or 5 days off, and then came back. And I remember we weren't the same team after that for the next little bit, and I think we had just a crazy pace at that point. And then after the break, we came back down to earth, and it wasn't as impressive. But that was kind of the closest thing. But it's weird when you have days off, like multiple days off during the season, and you're not at the rink and you're just walking around town. It's, I don't know, it's weird. Like, that's your city that you're there to play hockey. So when you're there and you're not playing hockey, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and I actually remember that snowstorm and that game because it was my weekend. My brother got married in Orlando, so my family it flew down to Orlando, and I was flying back to make sure to get back in time for that game, and then the game got postponed anyway,
Oh, nice. You made all that extra effort just to get back
just to
and
get
you
back
didn't
for a game
even
that didn't
get
happen. Right.
exactly. Oh man, I had that happen actually when we were leaving Montreal, and well, it wasn't quite like that, but we had a snowstorm thing where I it turns out that of a majority of the airlines, Air Canada is one of the only ones that will fly in the snow, and I think we were at Delta at the time, and so every flight got canceled. We were coming into Orlando as well to go to Disney, and we ended up having to fly into Miami. Got into Miami at 11 p.m. and they lost all of the luggage. We drove 4 hours to Orlando, so we had a day and a half in Disney only, no luggage. It arrived the night before we were leaving to go back to Montreal, and then we made it back luckily in time for everything to start back up. But it's just once the snow gets involved, you never know what's going to happen.
We did get the first flurries. You were missing it while you were in the nice warmth in Orlando. We had our first flakes of the season up in Arlington and surrounding Virginia area today.
Oh yes, get the outdoor rinks going. Pentagon City, here we come.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, man.
about time.
Yeah, and so on the way back, we're going to talk we're going to talk about Bruce Boudreau, our old friend, taking over as coach of the Vancouver Canucks. We'll be right back on All's Caps. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner, live on location from Walt Disney World. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and the news broke the other night. I was out in Raleigh with our friend Scott Burnside, a few drinks deep, I believe, at the time when we found out that Bruce Boudreau was getting hired as coach of the Vancouver Canucks. What was your reaction when you heard the news?
Bruce, there it is. Bruce, there. That's all I could think about. No, I was so fired up about it because lots of different reasons. I Bruce is one of my favorite coaches I've ever had. Not just because what he does as a coach, but how he is as a person. The way he talks, it's like I don't know, and maybe because it's not perfectly polished all the time, he seems more relatable. Like some of these coaches, they're so good at talking and their speeches and all that it's just like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like you can relate. But Bruce, I mean, we've all seen him on 24/7, and he can, he just says what's on his mind, and it comes out with clear passion because we're all the same. We're talking, and sometimes we stumble over our words trying to get them out because we want them to come out and sound the right way, and they just don't. And I feel like that's one of the things that is so great about Bruce is you can feel the passion when he's talking, and I think it's a really really great hire for the team because one of the best things about Bruce, and I'm sure you remember it from when he was here and when Mike Green was was getting going is he can bring out the best in guys, and he can instill so much confidence in a guy. He knows exactly what buttons to push and which ones not to push. He's hard on you without being like really negative. Some coaches get negative, and you get in that doghouse, and it's just like it's not a doghouse where you can get out of it with working hard. You're just in there and like see you later. It's not happening. But Bruce is a type of guy where I think if you work hard, you show that you're giving that honest effort and not making mistakes over and over, the same mistakes over and over again, then he lets you thrive. And so I always remember that I think he did wonders for Greeny when he took over, and next thing you know, Mike's scoring whatever it is, 30 goals, 20 goals a year, and became the player that he is because he's just that guy that will let you give you the reins and go ahead. Don't be afraid to make a mistake one time. Don't continue to do that, but go out there and play aggressive, work hard, and that's what the Canucks need right now. And they need somebody that can really steer that ship. Someone with an unbelievable pedigree too. He's one of the winningest coaches, like top 20 winningest coaches in league history now. It's just a great hire, and people are gonna love him there because he is pretty raw too. You can hear in his first presser already dropping an F-bomb. It's just, I don't know. I think the fans are really, that's Bruce. I think the fans are gonna really like him. I think the players are gonna really like him, and yeah, he's gonna be good for the city. But I'm sad to see him go because I was hoping to work with him a little bit more again when I finally get to do some of the games this year. But this is good for him. It's really good.
Yeah, and I'm happy for Bruce, and I miss Bruce. And John Walton said this on the radio broadcast the other night. The NHL is better for Bruce Boudreau being back in a coaching job. And I didn't know that he was ever going to get another job. And he said on NHL Network or something that he was very confident, but he wasn't sure if a GM would give an older guy a chance. But as a guy who played for him, what do you tell your buddies in Vancouver? Because I know you said that they're fired up out there. What do you tell your buddies who are like, well, what's this guy going to be like?
Well, it's like I said, he wants you to work hard. So I remember clearly that we have meetings with him, and as a player when you've messed up, like during the game, it's you've done something wrong. A team has scored, or there's been some chances against you that game, and it. But I remember going into meetings where he doesn't let you hide. If you've done something wrong, and there's some guys that occasionally are the exception where this is a coaching call where they know, okay, let's not pick on so-and-so because his personality won't take it as good as this guy's, as player B. And so he doesn't usually let you hide, which is great because that's the accountability that all players are looking for. You want guys to be accountable because then you know that they're going to do the right things when it comes down to it. And so I would remember going into meetings thinking, oh man, I was brutal last game. I had this turnover in the second period, this one in the third, or whatever. And sure enough, it was there. And it was never rip you to shreds, but it was, these things need to be ironed out. And then of course his classic, let the guys know that his classic charts are going to come where he writes these things on the board. And I've talked about it a few times now, but the winning, playing good, winning, just playing okay, and then winning, playing bad, and he does this whole flow chart of how it all goes, and he's right on. It's sometimes annoying how bang on he is with it, but it's just you want to get in his good books is you work hard, you play the way he's asking you to play, and he's gonna like you. So I think that I've heard him talk about it a couple times now, where he had the question, are there any players you would have maybe done things differently with, after the fact, realized after the fact? And he mentioned a few guys that he says maybe he had them in fourth line roles or third line roles, and they seem to be thriving pretty good now in second line roles. And so I think that's something that seems like he's maybe learned a little bit from not coaching, maybe trying guys out in different positions. Like I think I just read something where he said he was going to put Pettersson on the PK, like things like that, where you give guys a little bit more responsibility and see if they can handle it. And if they can't handle it, then at least you tried. You don't quite know what you have until you try it. So I just think that I don't know. I'm as I think as you can tell, I'm pretty fired up about that hire because the Canucks were them and the Leafs were my teams growing up. So it's I talk to my buddies about it all the time, and we've got a good group chat going right now, and they're already dissecting who's going to be the GM there now. So I'm happy for the team. I think it's going to do them well.
Well, I hope for your sake it's not your old boy Mark Bergevin as GM there.
I voiced my opinion on the chat about that. I don't think that would be a wise move, but they'll do their own due diligence, I'm sure, and talk to some guys about it. I got some opinions on who it could be. I've heard McPhee's name in the running, and I think that would be same thing, an awesome hire, and bring him and Bruce together again. But I don't know all the guys that they're looking at, so we'll see what they go with. But for their sake, I wouldn't go with that guy.
Can they turn? So the Flyers fire Alain Vigneault. The Blackhawks fire Jeremy Colleton. Obviously, Travis Green in Vancouver with Bruce taking over there. Of those three teams, which one has the best chance of making the playoffs?
That's tough. I mean,
it's a long way to go for the Canucks. I realize that, and it's a long way to go for Bruce. But when he took over in Anaheim, they were 20 points out of a playoff spot, and they missed by a few. So, he's done this before.
I mean, with that coaching hire, I definitely think he can turn them around and get them going in the right direction. I'm not 100% sure on the personnel there. If it's the right combination, it could happen.
Yeah, something's missing there. Sure.
Something could be missing. I mean, I kind of like Philly, honestly. The only problem with Philly is the competition for them to be in. I just don't really know exactly that's going to work out for them. So I would say, yeah, it may be the Canucks, but I do think the Flyers have a good group with a lot of solid players. They've had some issues, like obviously when Niski decided to retire kind of out of the blue for most people, that hurt them a lot. And then having Ellis be sidelined, I think he's a player that can fill the roles or fill the shoes that Niski had left when he retired. So I think they have a good chance. But yeah, I mean, Vancouver definitely could turn things around, but it is a long road ahead of them.
Yeah, and we've seen Bruce turn non-playoff teams into playoff teams. He had that amazing run when he took over as Capitals coach in 07-08. When we come back, we'll talk about a team that is fortunately in a playoff spot. Good for them, the Washington Capitals, and what is ahead for them, which might be the return of Nicklas Backstrom. Back here on All's Caps, I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. Capitals looking ahead here against the Penguins on a Friday night at Buffalo on a back-to-back. Maybe Nick Backstrom back soon. You played in probably hundreds of back-to-backs in your career, many levels of all that. What's the challenge of that for especially at the NHL level, of kind of conserving energy as much as you can?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard because you don't really have that option of conserving energy in that league. It's you can't really take any time off because there's just no opportunity to. I mean, you always wish to have a 5-0 game in the first one so that you can kind of spread the minutes out throughout the entire lineup, but it just doesn't usually happen that way. But what I do find is that the team that's come off a back-to-back is better in the first period of that second game than the team that's sitting there waiting, which
Sure.
is, I feel like they're just kind of still in a bit of a rhythm from the night before. It doesn't really matter if they've won or lost, but it's a little bit more fresh. But then it can be a little bit tough to keep that going for the entire game. So they're difficult in the travel and all that because, you got to think, their game ends at whatever it is, 10 o'clock, 9:30. But by the time they're on the plane and stuff, it's already 11:30. You got an hour flight, 12:30-ish, get into the hotel, and then you got to kind of wind down after that. It's a late night. And then depending on how your team handles it the next day, if there's meetings or if the guys just get to sleep in all the way, it's difficult. You're wanting ideal conditions to play every game, and then you have playing on no sleep and you're tired. It's very, very hard, but you got to hope that you can jump out hard in the first period and hopefully put a couple in there so that you can not completely take the foot off the gas, but breathe a little bit, and then after that, it's kind of ride it out. But yeah, the back-to-backs are tough, but they're nothing quite like the ones you get in the American League when it hurts you when you got to play
3 and 3
back-to-back-to-backs. Yeah, those are insane when you think about it. But the level of hockey is slightly different, so I guess it kind of evens out.
Right. And Nicholas Backstrom, it seems like he's getting close to returning, and we kind of have not an over under, but we're kind of almost like placing bets on when we think he's going to come back. Obviously, we know what Nick does for this team, but how soon can this guy be back? And what kind of infusion of energy is it going to be for the Capitals to have Backstrom back in the lineup?
It's going to be huge. It's like, whenever somebody comes back from an injury and a long absence on the team, and they get on the ice, and everybody starts stick tapping for him because they're fired up to see him back and to be a part of the group. And it's hard when your schedule is completely different than the rest of the team, right? You're not there for the meetings, for the practices. You're not in the room in between games where you get to really feel what's going on with the guys. And Nick's been there long enough that he understands everything that's going on, but still, it's a long time to be out of there. And they've already gone through, so much, a third of the season or whatever it is already. And so it's a little bit, it's a little weird, I would assume, coming back into the lineup and missing all that. But it's Nick Backstrom. It's the heartbeat of the that team, in my opinion. A guy that everybody's listening to, everybody's watching, and so I think that the guys will be really happy that he's back. But the thing that sometimes happens when the big guys come back is that everybody else kind of relaxes a little bit too much, because they're like, okay, now we got our guy back. Let's let him do it all. But he's gonna have to ease his way back into it. It's a long time for someone to be away from the game and to try and get back up to that speed. So, hopefully the team allows him to kind of slowly get his feet wet. But yeah, let's get him back in. I want to see him sauce a few passes, and hopefully, Kuzi's been doing a pretty good job of it. But it'd be nice to see Nick throw a few in the wheelhouse too.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and circle that December 19th game against the Kings as like the game you want to get him in there before Christmas, because in theory, like the energy in it building on that day. The Washington football team is playing at the Eagles that day. Right now, it might be like a kind of a celebratory night in DC to have a guy like Nick Backstrom back for a home game.
Yeah, that would be nice. You get him on the ice at home would be great, and play a couple games before a little Christmas break, and just in case he needs to take some time off after the first couple. So that would make a lot of sense. But once you really start gearing up for things, you'll see how his body reacts, what kind of shape he's into, because yeah, there's nothing quite like playing a game to get in shape. So it's gonna be difficult. But yeah, I would love to have a little DC celebration with football and hockey kind of going back to back there. So that'd be a good one. I'm gonna have to check the schedule myself and see where I'd place my bet.
Yeah, and this could be another NFC East champion Washington football team. And our my buddy John Keim does the Empire Media podcast on the Washington football team, and hopefully we'll be doing some cross synergy with that podcast at some point with Washington. But looking ahead, Karl, at Chicago next week, we've talked about arenas that are good and bad to play in. Did you like playing in that 23,000 Madhouse in Madison in Chicago?
All I need to say about that is anybody who loves a good sport atmosphere, and if you haven't watched a game in Chicago, you need to go and watch a game in Chicago. Be there before the anthem starts.
Yep.
Take all that in. Ideally, when the team is good, and maybe against a team that they have a good rivalry against, that would be great. But it's just something that you have to see. The chills that you get from that anthem are just out of this world, and I would put it up there with the probably top 3 buildings in the league in terms of atmosphere starting a game. You just have to see it. I don't even know if there's anything else like that in sports in North America, at least, where the fans are cheering through the entire anthem. I know they sing it a lot of times in Vancouver, like full on sing it, but where there's that much noise for the anthem. I don't know anything of it. Someone else might, but it's just something that's so cool. So yeah, it's on a hockey bucket list. That would be one of the things you need to see.
Yeah, well, I'm a couple years older than you, and one of my first hockey memories is the All Star game in Chicago in, I guess it was 1991, middle of the Persian Gulf War, and just like how loud that place was during the anthem, and Wayne Messmer singing it, and the organs going on, and to me that was one of those like welcome to hockey moments where just Chicago, and that was the old Chicago Stadium, but United Center fits 23,000 people and gets loud.
Yeah, it's insane. It really is. I mean, I'm trying to think right now of all the buildings and what their in-game ops are like, because that's something that I always really paid a lot of attention to. What the atmosphere was like for the anthem and all that stuff, and you've seen them all too, and it's like you put Chicago there. I think Montreal has a nice thing when they come into the Coldplay song
Yep.
at the beginning and all that. That's pretty good, but it's different than what Chicago does. I know Toronto they got some good light show, and Vancouver's got a good light show and stuff like that. Vegas, obviously. But yeah, I mean, a building that's loud, like you want noise, you want it, and it sucks sometimes as a fan when it's so loud, it's kind of messing with your ears, but it definitely gets the people going. And I mean, I don't know about you, like my top three openings, I definitely put Chicago up there. I put Montreal up there, and then
Come on, Vegas now, right?
yeah, I'd have to say Vegas probably is up there. I mean, they got a former WWE, like what is it, the operations guy from the WWE, I think that's running it now. So they know how to put on a show. So I think those are the top three. I don't know what do you think?
Yeah, I think Montreal, Vegas, and Madison Square Garden, New York's a special one to me. Like,
Right.
and I was around for so many of those playoff series that you guys played against the Rangers, and to me, just and even that year that they made the final in 2014 and covering a couple games against the Kings there's just something about the world's most famous arena and what it's like there. And I know Bruce Boudreau would disagree with me, but it's still fun.
It is, and it's like it's so funny. There's a couple places like that. So the Rangers is one where they have that goal song, "Whoa, let's go Rangers," that just like pisses you right off. You don't want to hear it, but when you think about it, it's like it's actually kind of sweet. And then the same thing in Chicago, the dun, 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 dun. It's like we don't want to hear.
Chelsea Dagger in
Yeah,
Chicago gets stuck in your head.
yeah. We always say you don't want to hear any of those dun 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 duns tonight, guys. Let's have a good one. Or you don't want to hear any cannons in Columbus. They shoot off that cannon every time the Blue Jackets score. So yeah, those are the things. It was something that a building can really, or a fan base, I guess, can really latch onto, and it really like inputs itself into somebody's brain. Like I have a serious imprint of that "Let's Go Rangers" song, and oh man, it bugs me, but it also fires me up at the same time. So they're doing something right there.
And look, I think opponents would feel that the Capitals have something like that too. Just when that crowd in a playoff run late in the season, like that's still a fun atmosphere to play in DC.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so we're talking about top three here. I'd be putting that building, definitely in the top 10 for sure.
For
It's
sure.
the unleash the fury. When things are going good, having that many red jerseys and stuff like that, definitely on track there. And the fans are starting to. I don't really know if they're doing it as much right now, but when the team scored and doing the goal chant and all that stuff. It's all your fault. I know some college hockey stuff, maybe be it was kind of what they were up to there, but I think that's cool because it's something that gets the whole fan base together. Even doing the wave, like the wave is old school, but it's classic, and I think it's just unites the whole building, and that's when it ends up being more fun. Like me and Mandy, we have this idea for this pump up video that we've been wanting to do for the team for a couple of years now since I stopped playing, I guess. And I was like, this would just be perfect there. I got to pitch the idea. And we've been kind of waiting for it because it's just one of those things that could really elevate the building to the next level when there's when the fans are just feeling it. It's the same thing, a Saturday night game, a Friday night game. It's there's just a little bit more juice in the building, and so if you can find other ways to turn a Tuesday night game into a Friday night feel, then it just goes a long way.
We're running out of time here, and I want you to get back to Disney and your family. We got to put a pin in this Wave discussion because I hate the Wave more than I hate almost anything in sports, and so we might have to have an entire episode where we're arguing over whether the Wave deserves to be in sports.
Well, you know what? I mean, I throw my hands up for the Wave. There can't be that many people that won't throw their hands up for the Wave if it's going around. You got to do your part. It's everyone tugs on the rope there. Otherwise, it's not a Wave. So I don't know what the Wave did to you, Wino. Maybe you can fill us in at some point.
We're going to have to argue about this at some point. Karl, safe travels for you and your family back from Disney, and we'll all talk to you next week.
Sounds good.